Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer. Issue 22. Right, let's do this. Time to finish off the second adventure arc with issue 22. So as always, we're going to start with a set of dice. Not as always, but as mostly we have dice. So here we go. We've got another tin set. Today just some blue dice. Well, this one looks a bit greyish on the bottom. See-through blue. It's a bit odd. They kind of look a bit dusty. I mean, are they supposed to be see-through? I can't really. I mean, they're supposed to be mystical. It looks like there's something inside them, but I can't really make it out. Okay, on close inspection, I don't think they're meant to have anything in them. They're just meant to be blue see-through, although maybe it's a couple of different shades. They look a bit dusty from some angles, maybe. So it's 22nd issue. What have we got? We're going to have cleric domains, telepathic powers, some Nupperibos, and should be continuing our adventure as well. So welcome to issue 22 of the magazine, Rezagar Stormhelm. I didn't really notice it. The exclamation's in the part of the red writing there, so I thought it was just saying welcome Rezagar, but it's a different sentence talking about the cleric. Mainly because Rezagar follows a life domain, and we're going to look at a few other domains that clerics can follow. And a few other bits like telepathy and some creatures and the rulers of the realms. And we've got some totally transparent dice, apparently. That's what they say these are. I mean, I guess so, yeah. Party of adventurers. Transparent enough, not totally transparent. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration. Anyway, let's move on to telepathy. And this is just talking about how it's not reading minds, but it's communicating mind to mind. I think their example here is Mind Flayer. A couple of things that can give you telepathy include a helm of telepathy, the telepathy spell, possibly a psi crystal. I don't know what it does yet, but it's mentioned here. So when you get your telepathic creatures here, they actually say the telepathy all feels different. It's not just one set thing. So like some fairy creatures doing it, you might get like a tingling sensation that's quite nice. Whereas in Aboleth, you might be really horrified of it, even if your most stout is Paladin. And when you're doing it, you don't need to know the language of the creature, because it's telepathic communication. You just think what you want, the creature understands, as long as they can understand language. And there's ways to protect yourself from it, including rings and spells, although you can optionally let your allies telepathically speak to you while ignoring the enemies. Some creatures you might find as well. You've got these flumps thing here. Never really heard of them, but I've seen a few when I've been reading like Order of the Stick. They're like an ongoing gag, I think. Mocanes, which I think is this blue guy up here. Mind Flayers, yeah, so they're over the page. There was a picture, I didn't zoom in on him. Pseudo Dragons, it must be this. And Sahugins, Sea Demons. I'm thinking like kind of quite tall, scaly mermen. I feel like I've got one of these in a monster in my pocket as well. But yeah, so if you want to use these monsters in combat as well, we're moving on to monsters managing monsters, part 6, and combat environments. So while last time we talked about behaviours and personalities, this time we're going to look at using the environment to advantage. There's stuff there like in taverns, you'll jump over tables and stuff. But I imagine this is going to be like if a creature's in a cavern, it knows the best places to hide or traps or things. Well, we'll find out over the page. So a few examples you get here. Monsters are clever. There's like say there's a valley where it's always foggy at the bottom. Most predators will probably wait there because that's the easiest place to ambush their prey. If you get a place where flash floods always end up draining into the same pool, monsters might gather there and just wait for the next flood when they're going to get some easy pickings and easy food just sort of wash in. If you've got any humanoids there, you might get some traps as well. Or just get some unexpected twists in there. Even like you could have just a general combat on a nice grassy hill. Suddenly a rainstorm appears out of nowhere. And that hill's not nice anymore. It's muddy, it's slippy, it completely changes the turn of events. No one can stand up. Put some high winds in there, just knocking people over. Suddenly it's completely different. And again, it doesn't have to be random. It could be there's a wizard somewhere who's planned it on this hill so he can throw the elements at them. Maybe a druid. Some extra dimensions to keep your players entertained. And then spectacular magic. This is on the same sort of vein. So far, anyway, I haven't seen much rules stuff. This is all just about describing all your magic and making it good to the players, because all this happens in the imagination. So rather than just going, your player casts Mage Hand to do that, it's got a couple of different things, like a wizard writes at a desk while a ghostly inkstained hand hovers nearby, or a warlock sends a phantom gloved hand to pour salt in the shape of a sigil on the floor, or a bard makes a spectral gauntlet hand throw open a lid of a treasure chest. And again, all three of those are the same scenario. You've just cast Mage Hand, but it's just giving description of what happened. And just to give some visuals to the player characters, basically. We've got some more bits about the spells here, about how they can use components. Some spells might use like a grain of sand or a bird's feather, which every spellcaster's got like a component pouch, they just have that. But some might have like, say it needs a pearl worth at least 100 gold pieces. And it does say as well, like if you need it, you can make it into hunt for the item as a fun side quest. Almost like an RPG video game. Some other components, you might need somatic components, so you've got to have a hand free. You might need verbal components, so you speak, and it's like, again, still talking about making it spectacular. If you're casting Thunderwave, you might just go, boom! And then you've got your other arcane spectacles, so all the magic's going to look and feel different, like think of all the senses. Stuff like if someone casts a magic missile, is it just like, does it look like an arrow, a dart? It could be like some sort of blue lightning bolt almost. A sleep spell might be a whiff of lavender as you're going down. It might be very hazy. It might depend on who's cast it. The top tip here says if your players are casting spells, just ask them to describe like what they look like or how they sound, just to really get them in it, because all their spells will be personalised basically. So speaking out of spells anyway, we're not going to look at more spells. We're going to look at cleric domains, which might influence what spells they can or can't have maybe. But we start off with the Tempest domain for the clerics, which is obviously become the storm of your god's wrath. These sort of clerics of Tempest domain, they might follow some deities like Aurora, the goddess of winter, or Talis, god of storms, Umberlee, goddess of the sea. It says none of them are particularly nice, but obviously if you consider them to like Zeus, Thor and Poseidon as like real world examples. So followers of the Tempest domain might have like a lot of hidden might and fury that they keep bottled down till they need it. Slow to anger, but also slow to calm afterwards, but devastating in their actions. We've got here the benefits for the Tempest domain. So you get access to domain spells, such as your deity might provide you with Fog Cloud or Thunderwave, but at higher levels you might get stuff like Sleet Storm or Cool Lightning. And these Tempest domain clerics get the Wrath of the Storm first level feature, so they can inflict lightning or thunder damage against opponents if they target them. At second level they get a Channel Divinity where they inflict maximum damage when dealing lightning or thunder damage, so they don't need to roll for damage at all if they hit. There's some background stuff. You know, a lot of your cleric could be based on the deities, so you might wield a trident or a hammer as your weapon. Your holy symbol might be a thunderbolt or a wave. Top tip here as well, if you want to be a different domain, most of these are featured in the player's handbook. So let's say if you want to try out a cleric new domain, create it at D&D Beyond if you own the player's handbook. Although I think that's a little bit irrelevant because actually I don't have one. I've created some characters there to test stuff. I feel like it gives you most of the info you need, to be honest. But it might be easy just to have a player's handbook for a bit of self-reference anyway. But if you don't want a Tempest, maybe you want a nature domain cleric. Something else before I forget as well. You don't have to be an acolyte really for this. You could be like a sage or a soldier or a sailor or a pirate or a gladiator, where you could have picked this up as well, which I thought was interesting. Anyway, yeah, back to nature domain clerics. And these might follow Maliki, goddess of forest, Sylvanus, god of the wild, or Deep Sashalis, elven god of the sea. And the nature domain clerics, they look after nature, they're guardians of them. They oppose those who would seek to destroy or subvert it. So evil plants, fae, undead, monstrosities, aberrations. And these can include gardeners, woodcutters, herders, hunters, druids as well, obviously. Well, no, druids aren't nature domain clerics, but druids are friends then. The actual line, if I read it properly, while druids communicate with nature, you serve as its righteous champion. Nature domain clerics, they get the benefits of animal friendship and speak of animals for domain spells. At second level, Channel Divinity expands their animal empathy, and they get an Acolyte of Nature feature, so they can actually use druidic cantrips in their spell casting. And some of the role-playing stuff here is, what does your god want of you? Do they want you to defend all of nature, or just specific areas? So like elves may be guarding native woodlands, a dwarf might be consecrating the mining efforts of their clan. And there's like personal traits. How comfortable are you leaving nature? In the service of the god, you might have to leave nature and go, say, into the cities to do it, and you might not want to. But for the service of your deity, you might have to. So just bring the force of nature with you in your adventure. If you don't understand that though, maybe you could try being a Trickery domain cleric. These guys embrace mischief, but they aren't necessarily evil or chaotic. They could have brave and noble intentions, but to achieve them, their tactics could be tricking your enemies as much as you can, rather than openly fighting them, fast talking about out of trouble. You know, do what you want. The more unguessable your actions, the better and more pleased your god would be, which could be Timor, goddess of good fortune, you know, Shar, lady of loss, Cyric, god of lies, or even Joaquin, the goddess of trade. But let's find out what the features are. If you're going to be Trickery, then you're going to get some benefits to go with it and help you. Domain spells will get Charm Person and Disguise Self, but at higher levels you can get Mirror Image and Pass Without Trace to help with sneaking in or out of places. Channel Divinity can be used to sow confusion. You've got an Invoke Duplicity, so you can cast an illusionary double of yourself. You can move about, see through its eyes, and you can cast spells from it as if it was you. You've also got the Blessing of the Trickster, which lets you bless another person to give them advantage of dexterity checks for up to an hour, or stealth checks for up to an hour. So good to partner with rogues, monks, rangers, anyone like that. Role-playing it, basically all you're going to do is want to trick people, and anything you can do in the eyes of your god who will be the audience. So if you can expose your enemy's weaknesses through trickery, you can laugh at their plans. And you might just be one of these people who peruse long lists of equipment to see what might come in handy. 1,000 ball bearings, might look useless to some, but perfect for you for whatever nefarious scheme you've got coming up. And some of the items down here, like you might want bags of tricks and beans in the deck of many things. One of your strategies could be just fill a hidden trench with flammable lamp oil and set it on fire when your enemies come here. Make them come to you for all of your deadly traps. There's always a chance the scheme will go tragically wrong though, but as a clerical trickery domain, it's about taking those chances. And anyway, now we're going to move on to the monster section this issue, which is, I'll call them Nupperibos, but Nupperibos, which is this thing here. Disgusting devils who live at the very bottom of the hellish pecking order. So these can be formed by mortals who commit evil through just indolence or sheer carelessness. They can be these, or you can get other devils who have just been fallen afoul of some political notations and been reduced to this level of low bottom devils. They get their ears sealed with lead, they get their eyes sewn shut, their brains pulled out. They're just mindless creatures. And individually they are weak, but if you get them together in packs they can be deadly, or even armies. Some demons might have them, and they don't need to be commanded. They will just, any non-demons they find, they will just attack at will. Despite the fact they don't have any strengths, they do have a lot of abilities that makes them dangerous even if they're not individually weak. They've got a cloud of vermin surrounding them, and if you get 2 or more Nupperibos, the cloud gets even worse. So stuff like constitution saving throws made with disadvantage due to how many of these stinging flying insects there are, blood sucking things, that sort of things that will just try and eat you alive. They've got a good tracking, so if anyone's been attacked by a cloud of vermin in 24 hours, they can track it, and will continue to do so in the search for fresh meat or until they find something new to go after. Because of the bite attack, they will try to devour any non-devils they find. They're blind sight as well, so the crowd of vermin what helps them see, but only as far as the cloud. So they've got 20 feet blind sight, even though the creatures are blind and deaf. And obviously, as we've said, immune to resistance. They can't be blinded, as we already know. They also can't be charmed or frightened, and they're resistant to cold and acid, immune to fire and poison. At least so, dealing with these, you know what you got to do. Just combat. Compared to if you want to know who rules the realms, and suddenly you enter in politics, where people have all got all their hidden agendas and motives, and then suddenly it becomes a lot more complicated and just whack stuff with a sword. Some examples as well. So the Neverwinter City is ruled by the Regent, whereas you get Waterdeep is operated by a council, where you'll go somewhere else like Baldur's Gate, and where everyone is segregated by class and wealth. Each of them have got obviously a different sort of setup, and they'll have a different ruler. Over the page we've got the many forms of governments you might find. Not going to go into all of these. Autocracy, bureaucracy, confederacy, democracy, plutocracy, republic. There's lots of various things there. A lot of them can be related to monarchy, so you'll have a sovereign with the crown. You'll have a patriarchy ruled by the eldest and most important. The republic, where it's electorates. Confederacy, where individual cities govern themselves but all contribute to a federation. All of this featured either in real life or in previous stuff. Obviously like Republic was in Star Wars and anything else. Although I haven't seen that. Magocracy, a government ruled by spellcasters. Yeah, I'm sure that forms of government can be looked at more thoroughly at another time. Instead, we're going to go to the DM section. As normal then, if you're not going to be the DM, if you're going to be playing through this, use the chapters to skip ahead before we get into details, as we look to continue our 2-part encounter to thwart an internal plot of the Ashmadi. Obviously, our story so far, we know we were summoned by Sir Laniver Stroud to investigate the infernal plot. We went and found Tertius in his house, who had obviously been changed to, he had been possessed by a demon, and some woman called Amanda, who was an agent of Ashmadi, who we followed into the sewers. And so now here we are in the tunnel to the cult cell's hideout. So we begin the adventure with a choice. The party can either wait for reinforcements if they reached out to Sir Laniver, or press onwards. And I do like this, it gives a bit of an urgency element, or kind of waiting. So if you wait for the reinforcements, you get 2 guys show up who are veterans of the gauntlet, but it means the cults can prepare for you. If you press onwards, the guys don't show up to the end, it means the cult won't be prepared. And so we enter the hideout, which is once the lair of an Aboleth. So you walk around here, it's a big it's an old ancient temple that's been neglected over time, but 20 feet high ceilings, all the doors are wooden and unlocked. Magical green flames in random places light it all, except for these tunnels here, they're completely dark. There's just an eerie feeling in the temple that something's watching you. And yes, some of these rooms are going to have cult prepared, which means if they've had time to prepare, it'll be different. So you start with the relic room, where it's got these pedestals, eye-shaped. If the cult is prepared, there's going to be a possessed cultist here waiting near the A2 door who'll open it, which is going to pour out some Nupperibos. But if they're not prepared, there's no one in there. But however, these Nupperibos are still here and will come out as soon as you open the door. A3 is just sleeping quarters, and that just abruptly ends in this massive chasm here. Hundreds of feet deep and quite wide in places. So when you enter here, the Shattered Hall, there's obviously this massive chasm. It's 15 feet wide at the narrowest section. And you've got rules to jump in. Previously, if you try and jump it and you fail, you're going to drop 30 feet before colliding with a narrow shelf that can hold you. On the very top though, there's an aboleth statue that's life-sized and disturbingly lifelike. It's got 3 eyes of green polished stone, but one of them's missing. But the statue's mouth can also open. But if you can get the last eye and restore it, there's a secret password and the statue opens more, it reveals a secret path to A7. Although I don't know if you have to do that because you've got this little tunnel over here. Maybe there's an advantage to doing the secret path. However, if you don't jump the chasm, continue going around, you're going to get to the pool room. In the centre of a pool, you've got another aboleth statue. This one's smaller and its eyes are part of the stonework, not green gems. But inside its mouth, it's got a faint blue glow. You can put your hand in it and you're going to hear the word Zafandra attacks, which you magically comprehend means passive in aboleth. Before then, you feel like it's bitten your hand off and take damage. Also, you've got to do a charisma saving throw or you become cursed and you can only breathe air. You can only breathe water, not air. Although it could be useful because the pool around it is 200 feet deep and at the bottom is the missing eye. So I don't see a way of actually getting it unless you become cursed. Moving on, if you jump the gap or I guess take this dark passage, you'll get to the entrance hall, which looks very similar to where you entered. And again, if you've got time to prepare, normally you're going to find 2 possessed cultists in there. If they're prepared, you'll find a bonus 2 waiting for you. Once you defeat them, you go to the ritual chamber. And again, I don't see anything here about you get a bonus for going through the secret door and working out. You can just go through the dark passage. So yeah, you just go that way. There's no need to go through there unless there's a bonus I'm going to find out later that I haven't seen yet. Inside we've got another 2 possessed cultists, an eternal fanatic, I think the stats block was in the last magazine, and the mysterious leader for the final encounter. And depending on if they're prepared or not, if they were unprepared, there's 12 cultists in the cages. If they are prepared, there's only 6, and I guess that's because the other 6 were possessed and sent out to fight you. You can get the key of the infernal fanatic or just open it with your thieves tool check. I don't remember any of these the last time, but apparently the fanatics Beltix and the cult leader chucks him a scroll and disappears as soon as you turn up. So he's probably like a recurring villain, which is something I quite like the sound of. And if you didn't wait for reinforcements, the 2 guys arrive now. Thorin Nabal and Elias Draco, veterans of the Gauntlet, these guys. Anyway, once you're all done with that, you're going to get some treasure, which includes this ring of mind shielding. It's got something else I quite like here. It's got a little secret from the players. So while it's got all the benefits to prevent them from being telepathically talked to, you can cause the ring to go invisible if you don't want people to know about it. If you die while wearing it, your soul enters it unless it already houses a soul. So this Beltix guy actually chooses to remain in the ring but go completely silent. Meaning at some point in a later encounter, this might come back to just suddenly start whispering to one of your players off on the side like, hey, can you hear me? And then you get an aftermath as well. So if these guys are here, they're going to argue between themselves. Do they kill all the hostages? Do they save them, spare them? If you do take them all back and you take possessed ones, there will be exercise of the demons. At which point you're going to get your reward. Your Sir Laniver is going to demand his stone back. And then the people you saved personally thank you and spread the rumours that you're heroes. And the best bit, level advancement. At the end of the adventure, the characters go to the 3rd level. Yes! Which we're obviously going to find out next time. The rest of the issue then is just stat blocks. So here's our veteran of the Gauntlet, who's a dwarf. I'm assuming they're both dwarves. Well, speaks dwarvish. Or that says medium humanoid. Maybe just speaks dwarvish, doesn't have to be a dwarf. And on the back, the monster was introduced, and now here's the stat block for the Nupperibos. Otherwise, that's everything in the issue. Right, there we go. Issue 22's done, and that's our encounter done with. We've come to issue 23. And if it wasn't for this new spell book we've got, Sinano Spells, you can see there's new magazine art for the new adventure. And yeah, so next time we're going to unlock all our 3rd level class features. Excellent. Otherwise, yeah, if you're still here, thanks for watching. Hope you stick around. There'll be links popping up, to follow the magazine or follow the series. And I'll probably have the next E&E video coming up before we look at 23. Or maybe 23, depends how the order goes. Yeah, as normal, thanks for watching. I hope to catch you soon.